Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. It is Tuesday and we are wrapping up the Week 6 action. What a week it was. We are going to just dive right in, and that starts with Thursday Night Football, where the question has to be asked, after winning September, did the Eagles just decide to take October off? They lost to the Broncos in their first October game in Week 5 to fall to 4-1. On Thursday night, they were playing the 1-4 New York Giants, and they got doubled up. The Giants winning 34-17. Another sort of middling game for A.J. Brown. Some curious comments post-game. And then some reports that they may be looking to move him before the trade deadline. Dennis, I'm going to say for a defending champion that has Super Bowl ambitions, it doesn't make any sense to me, but do you think he could actually get traded?
I mean, with Howie Roseman, you never know. Howie is going to do what he thinks is best for the team. Excuse me. Now, in my estimation, trading A.J. Brown would not be what's best for the team. Since week 2, he's averaging 8.8 targets per game, which is good enough for 9th in the league among wide receivers. It's just not converting at the kind of rate that we would hope for fantasy. But he's still, he's the number one there. And, high-end wide receivers generally are mouthy. They're divas. They complain when they're not getting the ball. They complain when they're getting the ball, but it's not perfect. They complain when a defensive back covers them well. It's always something with a high-end wide receiver. And A.J. Brown is no different. I think if they can keep up the almost 9 targets per game pace with him without affecting anything, the production will increase. I mean, he's wide receiver 37 on the season. I don't think Howie trades him, but Howie is a very, very shrewd operator. And if somebody comes to him and says, hey, we'll give you X, and he thinks it'll make the team better, I wouldn't bat an eye. Whether or not I think it makes the team better, what's that they say? Wolves don't concern themselves with the thoughts of sheep or some shit like that.
Meanwhile, I don't think he'll probably get traded either. I just think it's curious. Meanwhile, for the Giants, they're riding the high of Jackson Dart, but also Cam Skattebo. We saw Tyrone Tracy come back from injury this last week. He managed 6 yards on 4 carries, while Skattebo got 19 carries, 98 yards, 3 touchdowns, also had a couple of receptions. He is running back 10 now through 2 weeks. Where are you putting him in your dynasty rankings?
Well, I went over to my favorite dynasty resource, dynastynerds.com, and they have Skattebo at running back 16 in their dynasty rankings. Dynasty Trade Calculator, which, say what you will about trade calculators, is the best in the business. They have him at running back 17. You know, he's a bowling ball of a volume hog. He's tough as nails. He's going to run through you, which, you know, I've stated all off season and into the season gives me concern. You know, when, you know, he's not afraid to lead with his head, which will lead to concussions. I don't care how tough you are. But yeah, this week he outsnapped, led in snaps 49 for him, 21 for Tracy, and 4 for Singletary, and touches 21 touches for Scadaboo, 4 for Singletary, 3 for Tracy, or vice versa. I should have looked again. I wrote that note a couple days ago. But basically, he's getting the volume, and they're going to keep giving it to him. He's a good pass catcher. His dad was a wide receiver in college, so he kind of comes from a receiving background. He just happened to be short and squatty instead of tall and skinny like his dad. And so he comes out. He's a bulldozer. He runs hard. Jackson Dart lit a fire under that team. Yeah, they lost Malik Neighbors, so that's a bummer. They didn't have Darius Slayton this week. Wan'Dale Robinson has been playing out of his mind. Jalen Hyatt even is now making some plays. I forget who the other. Little Jordan Humphrey. You know, the journeyman's journeyman at this point in his career. And then Theo Johnson is, you know, him and Bellinger at tight end. I lean more towards Theo, but they didn't really get a lot done this weekend at the tight end position. But yeah, Scadaboo is, you know, to me, he feels like a classic hashtag 2 to 3 year window guy. If you got him this year, you're going to be looking to get rid of him, you know, by mid-season, end of the season next year, because the way he runs just portends a breakdown.
From a game that went poorly for the Eagles to a game that just was poor, the middle leg of the London trio was disappointing. 13-11, the Broncos get the victory. 16 of those combined points were in the first quarter. So you can imagine how uninspiring much of this game was. Denver, they got the win. I thought the offense started okay, just kept killing itself, and they just I do not feel confident when they're on the field. What do you make of this Broncos offense?
It's kind of hit and miss this year. You know, in the off season, we felt a little bit like, hey, we got Cortland Sutton, who's been extended. Marvin Mims came on last season. There's still the college connection with Troy Franklin. And, well, Sean Payton's going to bring in his joker with Evan Ingram. And then Ingram fizzled early in the season, but he came on a little bit. He was 5 for 42 this week. But it came at the expense of Cortland Sutton, who was 1 for 17. RJ Harvey hasn't developed yet into the running back we had hoped. J.K. Dobbins has been up and down at the running back position. So there's not a lot of players for fantasy you can hang your hat on. It's seemingly been Nix and Cortland Sutton. But now, after this week, it's like, well, what happens now? Now it's, you know, you're going to start Sutton. You're going to start Nix. You're probably starting Dobbins because he's getting the volume. Harvey had 2 carries, 4 targets, and Dobbins had 14 carries and 1 target. So you're probably starting Dobbins as a flex. The Jets defense hasn't been great this year, and for whatever reason, they played well in London. So, you know, maybe the Broncos just had jet lag.
Meanwhile, for the Jets, Justin Fields -10 total passing yards for the day, net passing yards. He became the first quarterback to be sacked 9 times and complete 9 or fewer completions since Justin Fields in 2021. So An ominous sign, we started getting some rumblings that the locker room is pushing for Tyrod Taylor. How are you feeling about Justin Fields' tenure as the starter?
Not great, Bob. Not great. I mean, for fantasy, he's had 3 games over 25 points and 2 games under 5 points. It's extremely inconsistent. Right now, you're looking at the Jets. You don't expect them to get a lead. And so Breece Hall isn't getting the volume you would like. What did he have this week? He had 22 carries, but only 59 yards. And I think that was more a function of Denver just didn't pull away at all. If they had, it would have been, I mean, Fields only threw 17 passes for 45 yards, not including the sacks. But right now you're hoping for garbage time Garrett Wilson production, garbage time Breece Hall production, and maybe even Mason Taylor, who had flashed last week, looked like, a nice alternative to that offense. And this week went, 1 catch for 2 yards. It's a mess. And
I think the problem for Taylor, having observed sadly every fucking snap of that game, is they had to hold him in to block, and not that it helped, but it's not a good. Garrett Wilson now injured, likely going to be out for a couple of games. They don't really have any receivers, and they're really running 2-man routes because they can't block. I'm not sure that's the recipe for Tyrod Taylor to succeed either.
Yeah, and Fields, the bugaboo for him has always been he holds the ball too long. Whether it's he thinks he can make a play, or he's not seeing the field clearly, or he doesn't have the confidence to throw somebody open. Whatever it is, he hasn't overcome it, and it doesn't look like he's going to. They may need to go to a wing T offense to, maybe a wishbone.
Now Braylon Allen's out, so that limits their options. Isaiah Davis does not look very good.
No, he looked good last year, but this year, no.
Regular Sunday games, the Cardinals went to Indianapolis. This actually ended up being a very exciting game. The Colts pull away 31-27, but I think it was exciting because Kyler Murray got ruled out, and Jacoby Brissett came in 27-44, 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. Does Brissett look better in this offense?
Well, he did Sunday. I mean, maybe you'd like the completion percentage a little bit higher, but 320 and 2, and he also ran for 19. The running game in general didn't produce much. 34 yards for Knight, 34 yards for Carter, 1 yard for DeMarcado. They lost Marvin Harrison to a concussion. Michael Wilson played pretty well. Zay Jones ended up stepping up and having a decent day. Trey McBride was his usual Trey McBride self with 11 targets, 8 catches, 72 yards. And all of a sudden, McBride scoring touchdowns. So that's good.
As soon as Kyler comes out.
I mean, Brissett is a different type of quarterback. He's not an elevator. He's got some mobility, but he's not a runner like Kyler. I don't think he's got as big of an arm as Kyler, but he's a veteran that knows what his limitations are, and he can play within the structure of his limitations. That being said, if your running backs are only going to get you 78 yards, I don't think that bodes well long-term for them. Part of the issue with the run game may also be that they're playing their 3rd string, 4th string, and 5th string running backs too.
Yeah. Not a lot to say about the Colts. They're surprisingly the number 1 team by record in the AFC. Daniel Jones continues to be a start. So is Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, and they get the receivers involved, 1 or 2 a game. So going to continue to be fun for fantasy. A game that was quite interesting. The Los Angeles Chargers 29, the Miami Dolphins 27. Seesawed a lot at the end of the game. I was also kind of taken. We didn't know what we were going to expect from the Chargers. Their line's beat up. They lost all their running backs. Here comes Kamani Vidal, 18 for 124, caught 3 passes on 4 targets for 14 yards and a touchdown. What did you think of Vidal?
He had a great game. I mean, I suggested Jackie pick him up, and she played him in the Roundtable Redraft League. She ended up not winning. Matthew Stafford kind of let her down. She had Daniel Jones on her bench, and so that was a bummer. But I mean, to be fair, the Dolphins give up the second most rush yards per game, so they were gonna be susceptible to the run game anyways. I expected a little more out of Hassan Haskins, but Vidal just was explosive. He ran the ball really well, and he was effective catching the ball. Even if he didn't get a lot of yardage, he caught 75% of his passes and got in the end zone. I would be, if I roster Vidal going into next week, I'd be looking to start him. I also wouldn't be surprised to see Haskins go 18 for 85 and 2 touchdowns next week, and Vidal have 6 carries for 20 yards.
I'd be surprised to see Haskins do anything. I did not think he was going to do anything. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, they kind of came, they played a screwy game. They were up for a while. They had been my upset pick. They were up for a while. Then the Chargers went ahead. They finally got their S together and went down there and scored and took a lead. And then their defense gave it away. Then Tua had a killer press conference afterward. We know Mike McDaniel is on the hottest of hot seats. They are now on the road in Cleveland, and Cleveland is the betting favorite in that game. Could this be just about the end of Mike McDaniel in Miami?
It could be, but I mean, Cleveland's got a monster defense. Their offense ain't great, but their defense is phenomenal. So it'll depend on the game plan McDaniel can put together. Now, Cleveland's got a minus 7.6 point differential on the season. So, Miami. So they've been suffering there. They also have a center, 2 guards, and 4 tackles on the IR or PUP list, and Tyreek Hill is out. So they've got, well, not all of those guys are starters on the O-line. That's a lot of O-line to have on the shelf. But Tua, I mean, he's QB2, a QB2 checking in at quarterback 18, Achane at running back 4, Waddle at wide receiver 12. So they're putting up some numbers. They just aren't really pulling things off and getting the wins. I do think it's one of those situations where it almost feels like McDaniel is losing the team.
Yeah,
he just
has lost the team. We shall see. He did win, though. He was not the first coach fired, which we will get to in a minute. New England Patriots went to New Orleans, got the 25-19 victory. Drake May, another solid day, 261 yards, 3 more touchdowns. Was their leading rusher, is now QB6 on the season. How good is Drake May?
He's very good for fantasy, especially. 4 out of 6 games over 20 points. He's in real life football, he's got the second highest completion rate behind Jared Goff at 73.9%, the 9th lowest interception percentage. Has the 8th most passing yards per game. Probably the biggest knock on Drake May is he's taken the 4th highest sack rate. Not maybe the raw numbers, but on dropbacks. So that is a little something to keep an eye on. My guy Kayshon Boutte seems to be coming on, and he had a nice press conference. I don't know if it was a press conference or somebody asked him, a reporter asked him, like, what's changed? And he basically said, I was immature. And,
he should have channeled his inner Cam Ward and said, we no longer ask.
Right. Yeah. He basically said, look, I was immature. I wasn't making the right decisions. I wasn't doing the right things. And I got my shit together, basically. And so I'm just going out there and I'm doing work. And I recognize some weeks the ball's coming to me and some weeks it's not. But when it does, I got to make a play.
Well, and with him and Diggs and Hunter Henry's still been pretty strong. They actually have developed something of a passing group, then having a player like Demario Douglas as a complementary option and Mac Hollins as a complementary option feels good, as opposed to where they were like 3 years ago, where that was your number one, and beyond that you were screwed. So
Right.
it's been a little nicer for Drake. Not a lot to say about the Saints. They've kind of settled into a groove. They're probably the best of the 1-5 teams by the eye test. You're playing Kamara, you're playing Olave, you're playing Shaheed. Your boy Juwan Johnson unfortunately cooled off and fumbled the ball. And Spencer Rattler, you know what? Surprisingly, you could do worse than him as a QB2. I do love that they went right back. It doesn't matter who the Saints coach is. If Taysom Hill is active, he is just a vulture. The one offensive touchdown the entire team got. And it was, I think, his only touch. He had 1 carry for 1 yard and 1 touchdown, 1 middle finger to all fantasy players.
Yeah, that's terrible. No, Johnson is tight end 14 after 3 down weeks. He was tight end 2 after the first 3 weeks. Olave, wide receiver 21, and and Shaheed at 28. I feel like what we're seeing is Spencer Rattler just kind of stacking wins. The wins aren't coming in the one-loss column, but the wins are coming on the field, making the right plays. He's got a 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And
he's definitely not stacking wins, though, because he's 1-12 as a starter now.
Well, but he's completing 67% of his passes. So a lot of things are going right. He's just not – they're not getting in the end zone as much as they need to be.
I just feel like there's more hope for them. Like, there are a lot of 1-5 teams, surprisingly, now, and a lot of 2-4 teams. And there's a lot of them where you're like, this roster's not good, this coaching situation. I think Kellen Moore is doing a pretty kick-ass job. They've had a somewhat hard schedule. They've been in all these games. They're not the Titans where it's like, did they even bother? I've been moderately impressed. I know they're only 1-5, but I think they've been moderately impressive.
You don't want to hang your hat on moral victories, but the Saints are getting them.
Carolina Panthers beat the Dallas Cowboys 30-27. This was a fun back and forth game. Dennis, we've had a lot of people that have been interesting saying they think that the Cowboys need to get Jaden Blue more involved since the beginning of the season. There have consistently been not great reports out of Dallas. I think he's really only been active the last couple of weeks because Miles Sanders is injured. Had 3 carries for 0 yards, a long of 2 on Sunday. Do you think he will or should get more involved?
I mean, it sure looks like the non-re-signing of Rico Dowdle was a massive, massive L for the Cowboys.
I don't know. I like Javonte. I think he's been fine.
Right, but wouldn't you feel better if you had Javonte and Rico?
Maybe, but they're not really a rotational back. I think there's 2 bigger problems for the Cowboys. One is CeeDee Lamb's on the shelf, and 2, I think they're missing 3 or 4 of their starting offensive linemen, which is why Dak's running for his life and hurling the ball down the field, and that's been successful. But their running game has taken a little bit of a back seat the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Blue played 9% of the snaps. He wasn't as efficient as Miles Sanders, which is saying something because, we're not big Miles Sanders fans. Maybe they bring up Phil Maffa. He should be ready to come back off of IR. They got Malik Davis on the practice squad. So while Jaden Blue is a little bit different back than those 2 guys, maybe he's more similar to Davis than he is Maffa. Maffa had a couple good showings in preseason, and it looked like he was kind of primed to be that big back complement to Javonte Williams, and then he got injured right at the end of camp and started the season on IR. Javonte's cooled a little bit. They're going to need something.
Meanwhile, Rico Dowdle followed up a 32.4 point effort in week 5 with a 33.9 point effort. Went for more than 200 total yards against the Cowboys, had a big passing touchdown. If it hadn't been for Bijan Robinson going off last night, probably would have been on track to potentially be RB1 for the week again. Chuba Hubbard is supposedly getting healthy. Dowdle has to remain a big part of this offense, right?
He will, based on just the explosiveness he's providing. Chuba is, he didn't have any big plays all season before he got banged up. And Dowdle has come in and provided that. Ultimately, it may come down to now, instead of Dowdle with 30 touches or Hubbard with 30 touches, they both have 14, and it's not good for fantasy for either one. You just have to hope the one you start is the one that gets the touchdown. But yeah, he certainly seems to be grabbing a hold of a significant role there.
One of the better games of the early window, the Seahawks went to Jacksonville, got the 20-12 victory. But what the hell is up with the Seattle backfield? Ken Walker, only 35% of the snaps. I did not see any reports that he was injured, only had 10 carries. We already had observed Charbonnet was seemingly getting in there in third down, in red zone, and in hurry-up offense. Now 60% of the snaps in a game that they were up and won. Are we seeing this backfield just slide away from Ken Walker?
It sure looks like it. I mean, I don't know how far away it's going to slide. It was basically a 13-11 touch advantage for Charbonnet, and they used Charbonnet in some specific things, i.e. the 4-minute offense or short yardage. Neither one of them were very productive this week. And unfortunately, if they're going to get 10 or 12 touches each, I don't think either one of them is going to have much of a chance to get into a rhythm and really, you're at that rate, you're just hoping somebody gets a big play or Charbonnet falls into the end zone. That's not going to be great for fantasy.
No, and it's really going to be interesting. Meanwhile, the Jaguars
and Darnold connection is kind of making it a moot point, though.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Jaguars didn't win, but it was a win for fantasy players. Brian Thomas Jr. seems to have gotten back on track. Last week, a good week. This week, 8 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown on his 10 targets. Are you feeling better that he has kind of righted the ship with Trevor Lawrence?
Well, he's wide receiver 26 on the year, but he's wide receiver 12 over the last 3 weeks. So he's kind of getting back. He's averaging 8 targets per game. It's up from last year overall, but he's not up near that. I mean, he was getting 11 targets per game when Mac Jones played at the end of the year last year. So I'd like to see him get more. Obviously, they spent a number 2 overall draft pick on Travis Hunter. And so there is, whether they say it out loud or not, there is some pressure to try to get the ball to Travis Hunter. And Brenton Strange was playing well. He's
Did you
out
see
now,
their Adidas commercial?
Yeah.
It was so weird. Like, it makes it look like they're best friends and they have this incredible chemistry. And I was like, except for when they're actually on the football field together.
Right. Yeah, it didn't look like they had great chemistry in the commercial either.
It looked like the worst romantic comedy I've seen all year. One of the worst games on Sunday was the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Los Angeles Rams, which would not have been our prediction back at the beginning of September, but the Rams winning this 17-3. Honestly, the Rams didn't look as good as I thought they were going to do. The Ravens dropping to a horrendous 1-5 heading into a bye. We'll start with the Rams. Puka Nacua got banged up, and we saw Tyler Higbee, who now is a little more than a year removed from that injury, starting to round back into shape. Had 4 for 40 and a touchdown with Puka Nacua banged up. They're going to London. They said he may or may not play. Do you think you could see Higbee start taking a step forward? Tyler Higbee has been a decent part of this Rams offense in the past. We've seen him step up. My frustration with Higbee has probably always been that it feels like he is a little hit or miss in that he has some of these big games, like on Sunday when he had 16 points, and then he has games where he disappears. So are you buying that he might be a little more startable for at least for a few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, he's always been a guy that can be a low end tight end one. It just depends on what the options are. If Kyren Williams is running the ball well, Kyren only had 13 carries this week. Puka got injured. Like Devontae, if Puka is out, we're going to see Devontae Adams getting 12 or 14 targets a game. Then it'll come down to what's Whittington or Tutu. What are they going to do in the passing game? But being down one of those, because the Rams have one of the narrowest funnels in the NFL. It's Puka, it's Adams, it's Kyren. That's pretty much it. As long as they're, if they are playing teams that give them a little more challenge than Baltimore did this week, I think I think you can start Higbee just about every week while Puka is out.
Meanwhile, you had called on Thursday. You thought that they might rotate in Tyler Huntley because Cooper Rush hadn't looked good. They did, in fact, rotate him in. Those guys kind of split. I thought they both looked bad.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley is a journeyman, third string practice squad quarterback for a reason. He did throw the ball on 15 of his 25 snaps, which is great, 60%. Completed 66.7 of them, but only 4.5 yards per attempt. He took 4 sacks, though he did run the ball 3 times for 39 yards. It was a weird game from the standpoint of they're behind. Derrick Henry's running the ball a lot. And
they were never that far behind, though. Like 3-3 game at the half was not what I had on my bucket list. I think the Rams, it was like Rams minus 9.5 going into this game, and they end up covering it. But this was the ugliest cover I think I've ever seen.
Well, and Derrick Henry only touched the ball one time after Snoop Huntley came in the game. It was, they basically said, well, we're going to have this guy run and throw.
Let's chuck it down the field.
We're going to put Justice Hill in now.
More AFC North games. The Cleveland Browns went to battle the Steelers. Browns probably should have tried to take a bye week after going to London because they looked like they were still on vacation. The Steelers cruised in this one 23-9. A second start for Dylan Gabriel. Some are wondering whether Shedeur will get a start. They had Gabriel throw it 52 times for reasons surpassing understanding. But we also seem like we're getting closer to a time when they may have an opportunity to activate Deshaun Watson. It feels like trading Joe Flacco is clearing the decks for them to do that. If they do that, do you think he goes back into being the starter?
Let's face it, the bar is pretty low. It's not like he has to be Houston Deshaun Watson to secure the job in Cleveland. They need a quarterback that can get the ball to Jerry Jeudy, and when Tillman comes back, him. Who's the other cat they got running out there now? Isaiah Bond. If they can ease up with the passing game, that's going to open things up for Quinshon Judkins. He wasn't very efficient this week, but he's looked good generally since he's been in there. They got nice weapons with Njoku and Fannin at the tight end position, though I don't think Watson has a history of I guess who was that guy they had in Houston?
You're right. He never really used a tight end, but they don't have a lot of options. He had pretty good chemistry with Njoku before he was here.
So it's a situation where because the bar is so low, 52 pass attempts, only 221 yards isn't great.
6 sacks.
But they also they've got a lot of injuries along their offensive line. Their running game isn't effective.
Do you
The
think they
quarterback-
should give Shador a shot? I mean, I don't think Gabriel's been horrible, but why would you not see if it's any different?
Has he showed him anything in practice that leads him to believe it'll be any different? I mean,
He showed some things I thought in preseason that were more impressive than anything we've seen from Dylan Gabriel. So,
I would think that if we're 4 or 5 weeks away from Watson being able to start, we'll probably see Shador if there's another loss this week. We may see Shador this week, but
they're favored this week. They're hosting the Dolphins. So this week's sign of the apocalypse. Meanwhile, for Pittsburgh, they're 4-1. They have a 3.5 game lead in their division. At no point in time have I watched this team and thought they looked impressive. Their running game is kind of passing game, they have 1 or 2 good balls a game to Metcalf, and then a lot of dinking and ducking. With this week, they found 3 other tight ends they'd rather throw it to than Pat Freiermuth, much to all of our dismay. Is this formula sustainable for the Steelers?
I mean, they've been getting 9 and 8 out of it for years, and it feels like because
which might
the
be
rest
enough to win the AFC North.
It does feel like they're going to win it at 9 and 8. They're going to be a first round out in the playoffs, and they're going to not be in position to get a great quarterback in the rookie draft. So, Jaylen Warren has played pretty well. Kenny Gainwell's played pretty well. They don't have any depth at the wide receiver position, but they also, when you're using 4 tight ends, how much wide receiver depth do you need?
Exactly. Las Vegas Raiders hosted the Tennessee Titans, got the 20-10 victory. Brian Callahan becomes the first coach out, was fired on Monday morning. The Titans 1-5 in now his second year. I believe they said he was 5-19 overall. Dennis, they've replaced him with Mike McCoy. Does firing him now actually make this team better?
No, but I don't think they fired him to make the team better. I think they fired him because Amy Adams Strunk said, I am not going to let this coach lose to Mike Vrabel next week, the way that he's leading this team. So they're going
to let another coach lose to Mike Vrabel? They're losing to Mike Vrabel either way.
Yeah, but because of the shenanigans isn't the right word, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on there is kind of what we've heard. And Callahan didn't seem to, he wasn't a very good coach, and at least a very good head coach.
I mean, I don't know if we know, honestly. Talk about dysfunction. They fired Vrabel, and then they fired the GM, and then now they fired another coach, and I think they fired a GM right before they fired Vrabel. I mean, they just keep firing and making changes. You had the number 1 pick and you fired your GM for a reason, because your team was dog shit. And through 6 games, you're saying with a rookie quarterback and still a not very good roster, you haven't looked good yet. Neither has Baltimore, and they have Lamar Jackson. This to me was just a symptom of a complete garbage franchise continuing to be a complete garbage franchise. And I can't wait for them to get trucked on Sunday by the Patriots, because I've had Mike McCoy as both an offensive coordinator and a head coach, and good luck.
Yeah, McCoy, let's see, when he was in with the Chargers, his offense is ranked 12th, 17th, 26th, and 9th. And that was with Phillip Rivers at quarterback.
Yeah.
Have you heard though that the early leaders out of the gate for the job in Tennessee are drum roll please, Arthur Smith and Matt Nagy?
Which would make sense, because why would any real coaching, like, this is the classic situation where you saw people like Ben Johnson or I can't, the one that's coaching with Dan Quinn. When
Right.
you are a very good coordinator on a good team doing a good job, you're going to be more choosy. People are like, well, Joe Brady's for sure going to come coach the Titans. What the hell makes you think Joe Brady would leave being in Buffalo with Josh Allen to go to that dumpster fire where you have, like, it takes you a while then to actually build that back. Look at what happened with the Texans when they had that revolving door with messing up the GM and the coaches. It took them a while to stabilize the franchise after that. And the Titans dumpster fire, which they're such a dumpster fire. They made the Raiders look good on Sunday. Speaking of the Raiders, Brock Bowers missed again, may not be back again this week. It's looking more and more grim the more time goes on. Michael Mayer, though, back healthy. We saw him have a decent week 1 when Bowers went out, and then he himself got injured and missed some time. But now 7 targets, caught 5 for 50 and a touchdown. Do you like him as a play with Bowers out?
With Bowers out, definitely. I mean, let's face it, Michael Mayer is the Tyler Algier of running backs or of tight ends. You know, he came in, he was highly regarded as a prospect out of Notre Dame. He was, guys, I forget where I typed that. I feel like he was like tight end 20 or 19 in the middle stretch of his rookie season where he played a lot. On a admittedly bad Raiders team. He's a good tight end. He's you know, Cole Kmet plus. Is he the athlete that Brock Bowers is? No. But he's a good tight end. He's gonna play, he's a traditional tight end, he's a good blocker, he's a good receiver, he's a good route runner. He just happened to get Brock Bowers drafted, and well, that's a unicorn at the position. And so now it's like, well, let's figure out how to use both of these guys. And he's had some injury issues. But if Bowers is out, Mayer has an opportunity to, you know, put some great game film on. He's got 1 more year left on his contract next year, I believe. And he could go in free agency the year after and maybe go somewhere where he can be the guy.
Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosted the San Francisco 49ers. Buccaneers getting the 30-19 victory, but looking more and more like a mash unit. Another great game for Kendrick Bourne, caught 5 for 142. Do you think that there is a role for him even as the 49ers get some of these receivers healthy?
It feels like it. I mean, they got rid of Debo, so they're, you know, Pearsall and
apparently Brandon Ayuk scrubbed all references to the 49ers from his social media and has not been practicing with the team.
Well, I saw on Roto World that I don't know if it was Shanahan or Lynch that had said something about week 10 looked like a possibility for Ayuk to come back. But, you know, it's the team they've got some issues because their quarterbacks can't stay healthy. They've got a great situation at quarterback because Mack is a very good backup and should probably be a starter somewhere. But Bourne's a 30-year-old journeyman. He started 37 of 105 games. He's got a good connection with Mac Jones. Mac is QB 29 since week 2, and that was with not playing in week 4. But Bourne is playing the second most snaps of his career, and he's healthy. And so he's out there and he's able to make some plays. He's been wide receiver 4 over the last 2 weeks. I don't think that holds up if Pearsall gets back and Kittle gets back and you've got Christian McCaffrey doing Christian McCaffrey things. You know, they're all guys that are more talented that when they come back will push Bourne down, even Juwan Jennings. So there's going to be some opportunity. He's got to make the most of it. But, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I just saw the Ayuk report. I guess the people that reported that he swept everything from social media made that up. So Maybe, but you're right. They did say maybe week 10, Kittle, maybe week 7. Apparently, Jawan Jennings is playing with 5 broken ribs and a high
Yeah,
and low ankle sprain. That seems not spectacular.
this seems like a lot.
Meanwhile, speaking of injuries, Tampa Bay already was missing Mike Evans. Chris Godwin came back and got hurt again. Now Emeka Buka went out, likely to miss a couple of weeks. So enter rookie Tez Johnson. Only 3 targets, but he did catch a 45-yard touchdown bomb. Did some interviews post-game. Could he be the next man up for Tampa Bay?
Yeah, especially with Jalen McMillan out. Sterling Shepard had 3 targets as well. I don't know who this Cameron Johnson guy is. That guy came out of nowhere, caught 4 for 4 for 64 and a touchdown. But I like Tez Johnson. The knock on Tez Johnson is he's in that Jordan Addison. That year Addison came out, there were like 3 or 4 wide receivers that were all like 5'9", 5'10", and 175 pounds. That's Tez Johnson. But if you pair Tez Johnson with a 6 foot, 205-pound Emeka Buka and a 6'1", 215-pound Jalen McMillan, then the post Mike Evans, Chris Godwin era looks like it's in pretty good hands. I like what Tez Johnson can do. I'd like to see him turn, he led the wide receivers in snaps with Ibuka getting injured at 72%, but I would like to see him turn that into more than 1 catch for 45 yards, even if it is a touchdown.
So Cameron Johnson apparently went to Barton College, and I just clicked on Barton on Pro Football Reference, where it gives you the list of the number of players drafted that attended there, and he's the only one.
Cam Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, Cam Johnson. The Green Bay Packers hosted the Cincinnati Bengals, got to play Joe Flacco for the second time this season, got the 27-18 victory. Dennis, only a couple days for Flacco with the team. 29 of 45, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Miraculously, only 1 sack behind that line. How did you feel about Flacco's performance?
So Joe Flacco is the consummate professional. I mean, he's been, I think he was an understudy to Sammy Baugh. He's been in the league a long time.
He's not even the oldest quarterback that's going to be playing on Thursday night.
Yeah. Well, he's old. The big thing I saw from this game is he got rid of the ball quick. 2.41 seconds. Like, he hit his back foot and he was throwing it. And the result of that is it was just 4.9 air yards per attempt. He was not going to stand back there behind that line and survey the vast expanse of I forget the stadium down there in Cincinnati. But he was
they were at Lambeau Field, so it didn't really matter.
Oh, okay. He wasn't gonna survey the frozen tundra. He's got back. If he was throwing the ball, he got back there. He was reading it. He was getting rid of the ball. 29 for 45, like that's a pretty good completion percentage, but only 219. He did have the 2 touchdowns. Chase Brown had his most efficient game of the year at 4.7 yards per carry. So I think having Flacco to get him into the right play, because even with 3 or 4 or 5 days notice, he's smart enough. Like, he's probably played in every offense in the NFL at this point and learned every verbiage.
I mean, if something happens to Rodgers, the Steelers need to trade for him just so that he can say he played for every team in the AFC North, because he's only missing the one now.
So no, I didn't hate it. Part of the issue we saw in Cleveland versus this year versus when he was there a couple years ago, he's losing some zip on the deep ball. He doesn't throw the ball. He just doesn't. I mean, he's old. I get it. I've got, there's like, in working with Cole and his throwing, it's like we need to do long toss. I can't throw the ball as far as Cole can throw the ball. So when we do long toss, he throws the ball over my head. And so I can respect what Joe Flacco's out there trying to do with that old right arm is. But overall, I think he's doing the right thing. Chase Brown was RB22 here on week 6. Jamar Chase is RB5 on the season still, and I think that is going to continue. I think the big beneficiary is going to be T. Higgins, who's RB47 on the season. So having a veteran like Joe Flacco in there is going to help Higgins. He may not get back up to the low end wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 that we had hoped with Joe Burrow, but he could be a low end 2, high end wide receiver 3 with Joe Flacco.
Meanwhile, the Packers moving to 3-1-1 continue to be kind of a dart throw in the passing game. Josh Jacobs going along good. I don't understand the love for Jordan Love as an MVP candidate. I have not been super impressed by the way they're playing, but have you been more impressed with the Packers offense?
Well, I'm impressed with Josh Jacobs. See what Jordan Love, QB 17 on the year. Love is kind of that's where he is as a quarterback. And we'll see if they add a little more explosiveness when Christian Watson gets back. Maybe Watson will help Matthew Golden to break out of his shell and become a little more explosive. But it's been the Tucker Kraft show at the receiving spot, from tight end. Then Romeo Doubs has been the floor guy, and he's had some pretty good games, 3-touchdown game notwithstanding. So they've got some weapons, but part of it from a fantasy perspective is they've got a bunch of pretty good guys that catch the ball, maybe no true superstar. So there's nobody you can count on. If you need a 30-point game out of a receiver in Green Bay, you don't feel like you're going to get it. Whereas, you can get that from a Mike Evans, or you may be able to get that from a Jamar Chase, or some of these other big names. You're not going to get that out of the Green Bay receivers, though. I think what Dobbs probably did it last week with the 3 TDs. But
Sunday Night Football, Detroit went to Kansas City. The Chiefs get the 30-17 victory. Big fight post-game. Brian Branch kicking that off. What do you think the ramifications of that fight are going to be for the Lions?
Dan Campbell did not seem happy. The league, I think, has already suspended him for a game. I don't know that Campbell will hold him out beyond that, but I would expect their kangaroo court to impose a pretty good in-house fine punishment kind of situation. I mean, that's the kind of things you just can't do. You need to, I get it. Dan Campbell is a rah-rah, we're going to fight and we're going to do all of this wild stuff. But after the game is over, you don't need to get that type of penalty. And I think Brian Branch is a good enough player. He doesn't need to do stuff like that. So take your loss, let the Chiefs talk shit to you. They beat you. Juju, what did he put up? 3 catches for 57 yards. Not a monster day by any stretch, but hey, he got over on you a couple times.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Kansas City, this was the final game that they have to play without Rashee Rice. He is coming, but don't look now. Patrick Mahomes, through 6 weeks, is QB1 in fantasy. He has had 23 or more points in 5 of the 6 games, 26 or more points in 4 of the 6 games. Going back to maybe looking more like vintage Mahomes. Do you think that it's just wheels up even more when they're getting Rice back?
I do. They don't have a running game to speak of. Pacheco, 12 for 51, that's okay. And, Mahomes still was second on the team in carries, 10 for 32. Kareem Hunt's not giving you a lot in the running game. Rashard Smith, who's a lot of people's dynasty darling on that team, isn't doing it. So I think they're already, I think, one of the most, if not the most, pass-heavy team in the league. And when they get Rashee Rice back and a healthy Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown and Travis Kelce, there's going to be times where we're going to be like, oh, they should run the ball here, and they're just going to say no. They're going to pass it. That's what we do.
I don't think they should run the ball because they don't have any running backs. So
I concur.
Monday Night Football, we had a doubleheader. The first of the games, the Buffalo Bills went to Atlanta and came away with their second straight loss, 24-14. Speaking of previously undefeated teams taking October off. Is it a case of just too many injuries for Buffalo? Their defense is banged up. They're missing a ton of guys. They started missing a ton of guys on offense. They have just looked out of sorts. They're going into a bye week. Do you think that will help them get healthier and get back on track?
Well, not to be snarky, but sure, not playing a week is definitely going to help them get healthy. Ed Oliver missed a game or two. He was back this week, but Matt Milano was still out. And Milano is the heartbeat.
Their secondary is gone.
Yeah, Milano's the heartbeat of that defense, I think. Terrell Bernard's pretty good. But the rookie Hairston at cornerback has been out. So, the last couple of weeks not being able to stop the run has been a big issue for them. But they also didn't have Kincaid this week. They lost Joshua Palmer early. The one interception was kind of fluky. I forget Zach Harrison from the Ohio State University got his hands on that one pass on the rollout that was intercepted.
I think the real killer was they had so many injuries they put in. First of all, Joe Brady maybe is the right coach to coach Tennessee based on some of those third and short play calls he called, but they had so many injuries they had to put Elijah Moore in there, and apparently he doesn't have hands.
Right. Yeah,
he went to the Marquez Valdez-Scantling School of Receiving. He dropped a couple of, but I thought that was a huge killer turning point. That second interception when you're down 10 and you have 2 minutes and no timeouts and ball gets tipped, whatever. That fumble, they were squarely in it. 7-point game. They had just blocked a field goal. They needed to go. That was a horrendous play.
And then they couldn't stop the run. I mean,
they were much better in the second half, though. They allowed like 335 yards of offense in the first half, and I thought this is the worst game I've ever seen. And they did a lot better in the second half. They held them a little bit more in check, which you look at the stats and it's, I think they allowed 443 total yards, which is horrific, but they held them down a little bit better in the second half. Are the Falcons just one of those teams that you want every piece of them when they're at home, and you have to be it feels kind of like how we've had these teams before, especially dome teams, where at home you're starting everyone, and when you're on the road, you're starting like one or two of the biggest stars.
Yeah, I think, London, Bijan are always starts. Kyle Pitts is probably somebody you can start a lot, but you're going to be you risk having a 3 for 18 game like this. Algier is a guy that can get game scripted out, but he showed why he's valuable by busting off that 21-yard touchdown run. He looked fantastic there. He's a guy I'd love to see go somewhere when his rookie contract expires, where he can kind of get an opportunity like he had his rookie year. Getting Darnell Mooney back, I think, will help the passing game. Casey Washington sort of didn't really do it, but they only targeted 5 players. It's we love a narrow funnel, and they only threw the ball to 5 different people. Drake London had 16 targets. Bijan Robinson had 8. 24 or 32 targets went to those 2 guys.
Yeah, and I think the big one for me, the home road one, is Michael Penix this season at home, completing 67% of his passes, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. On the road, 54% of his passes, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, averaging 5.4 yards per pass. So Michael Penix at home, yes. Michael Penix on the road, taking some chances. The final Monday night game, which was actually the one that ended up on ABC, was the Chicago Bears at the Washington Commanders. This is another battle of the first and second overall draft picks from the 2024 NFL Draft. Jaden Daniels got the first one on a pretty miraculous last-second play. the Bears got last night for Caleb Williams, their second straight 25-24 walk-off victory. Are the Bears figuring it out for Ben Johnson?
Yeah, the Bears need to learn how to win. They need to learn how to win close games, to be tough, to be gritty. And Ben Johnson is getting that out of them. So, Washington didn't seem to have an answer for DeAndre Swift yesterday. He was RB6 this week. Caleb Williams is QB12 on the year. You see his mobility. I think I've mentioned it before. He just looks really fast. Justin Fields is fast, but Fields doesn't look fast when he's running. Caleb Williams looks fast when he's running. He didn't run for many yards, only minus 2 yards, but he got the touchdown. Threw for 250. You'd like to see more production out of the passing game than one touchdown. But DeAndre Swift was 67 yards receiving, 108 yards rushing. I was a little disappointed in the production of Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. But
Moore got injured, though, and ended up staying overnight in the hospital in Washington, apparently. So that's something to
they didn't really say what it was.
So Bears head coach said that Moore is nursing a groin injury but has returned to Chicago after being hospitalized in Washington, D.C. overnight. So probably something to keep an eye on. For the Commanders, they have had trouble keeping wide receivers healthy and on the field. We saw Chris Moore kind of get a role last night. 5 targets, caught 3 for 46 and a touchdown. That touchdown, a beautiful 22-yard grab. Are you buying into him at all?
Nope.
Simple enough.
It's just a function of the situation. If McLaurin and Debo and Noah Brown are healthy, he's behind all 3 of them. And he's probably battling with Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey to be the number 4. And I got to say, he's probably losing that to at least one of them. He could very well be the wide receiver 6 on this team. He's been around a long time. He's bounced around the league. It's one of those things. When your number's called, you gotta produce. He produced yesterday. But when those other guys are healthy, he's going to be back on the bench playing special teams. And he'll be behind Zach Ertz as well. So, if you got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt running the ball 17 times, he wasn't as effective as he was last week, but he had 61 yards, 1 catch for Krosky-Merritt. This is one of those games that Chris Moore is going to sit around and tell his grandkids about because the rest of his career has been pretty nondescript.
I mean, I feel like he's had a couple of these games before. I think did it once for the Ravens when they had no receivers, once for the Texans when they had no receivers. So
it's literally somebody's got to play situation.
Let me just tell you that's a wrap on week 6. And if you enjoyed these games, wait till you get a load of the schedule for week 7, which charitably Miami at Cleveland may not be the worst game on that slate. So it is something. But if you're looking for something to fill the time before we are back to preview a lot of turkeys on Thursday, what can you do?
Well, do what I do and go to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. And if you're looking for some easy money, I am 58, 34, and 1 on the money line so far this year. I was 12-3 this week. I strolled into that Detroit game with a perfect record and I lost all 3 games. So,
yeah, it was, that Denver game made me cry because it was so bad to watch. And then the Lions and the Bills lost in prime time. So it was a rough week, but there's always week 7. Lions are in prime time again. I believe they're on Monday night this time.
We've earned it. Damn it.
Yep. That'll do it for us today. We will be back on Thursday with a full preview of week 7. Until then, have a wonderful week.